Coming up on this episode of Flirtations, we're going on a transformative journey of embodied healing. What's that, you may ask? Stay tuned with founder of the Feel Good membership and host of the Self-Expression Lab podcast, it's Eliah Prichard. Today, we explore what it means to feel truly safe in our bodies as Eliah guides us through the art of self-expression and embodiment as a way to feel our feelings and then release them. We're moving beyond traditional models of nervous system regulation and getting truly embodied today, y'all. We'll also learn how boundaries help us regulate our nervous systems, how we can build self-trust, and how we can embrace more joy in our lives. Even if any or all of this has been hard for you before, today it gets a little bit easier. Finally, the answers to why playing more is key and the truth behind your anxiety. So if you're ready to break free from limitations, tap into your inner light, and truly live with embodied healing and self-love, this episode is for you. Let's do this, Flirties, and meet Eliah.
I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. I heard you wanted to flirt. Hello, my name is Benjamin. I'm the flirt coach and a gay Libra. Everyone has an inner flirt.
Hey, Flirty.
Live, laugh, flirt.
Work the flirt.
Work the flirt. Delulu is the Salulu. Expert on the flirt.
Hey, Flirty. There's always another flirt.
Everyone has an inner flirt. Get out of your head and into the flirt.
Flirties, today on the show, we're going to be talking about dating with emotional freedom, embodiment, self-expression, and the nervous system with host of the Self-Expression Lab podcast and founder of the Feel Good membership, Eliah Prichard. Hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to spend some time with you.
Oh my God, jinx. I'm equally as excited to talk about some healing, some self-love, but really getting into self-expression, embodiment, and what our feelings and our emotional experiences are maybe telling us, teaching us, offering us. I'm really curious to get into this reframe of nervous system healing outside of maybe some of the traditional ways we've heard it explained in the past.
Yeah, it's been since day one, so important to me that we make this work so much more accessible and kind of de-therapeutize it, de-pathologize it, and really recognize that it shouldn't be a weird thing to talk about or even like a medical thing to talk about when we're talking about emotional mastery or emotional well-being and full self-expression. We're all experiencing it. We don't have to be so weird about it. We all are experiencing some anxiety, some days that feel joyful, some days that feel full of anger, some days where we have a lot of self-doubt. It's such a normal process that it belongs everywhere, not just in the scientific or therapeutic communities,
Yes, I agree. Make this accessible. We're all humans having a human experience and a more or less human body.
Yeah, more or less, can't speak for everyone, but
more or less. So, Eliah, how did you get started in this work? I'm curious to always hear a little bit of the origin story.
So I actually went to school for psychology and I have my master's in couples and family therapy as well. But as it turned out, before I went into my master's program, I was working with children from really extreme trauma backgrounds in residential settings. Okay. And to be honest, even though I spent the first year at that job absolutely terrified because it was a growth's edge, it's in pretty extreme work, I loved it. It's the best job I've ever had. And the reason was because kids heal in creative ways. Okay. When children are healing from extreme trauma, they're not sitting down and necessarily just talking about it. They're feeling it out. They're healing during playtime. They're healing during bedtime. They're healing during meals. They're healing when they are making art and when they're out in nature. And it's so much more natural to us to be expressing ourselves and navigating our relationship to ourselves in relationship to all these other things that can potentially bring us joy and make us feel really grounded, things like nature and play and imagination, right? And so you see them make a lot of progress. Okay. Pretty quickly sometimes, depending on how open they are to the work. And when I started working as a traditional therapist in a more refined clinical setting with adults that were really motivated to just use language to try to move through things and to grow, I just noticed there was a huge piece of the puzzle missing for me, not only as a practitioner, but also for my clients, and really being able to access the results that were possible for them.
Yeah.
And it's a bit like, you're in the yoga industry. So it's a bit like if somebody is only lifting weights and that's the only movement they do, they're going to see some results, but then they're going to plateau and they're going to feel stuck in some ways. They're not going to have the flexibility, the openness, the diversity that yoga, for instance, if they added it to their practice, would offer, right? So I saw that with my therapy clients as well. And long story short, ended up just launching my own coaching company after so many years of soul searching and being like, if I'm not a therapist, what am I? How do we do this? A lot of years of soul searching, a lot of years of researching as well.
Okay.
Using myself as the guinea pig. I feel like, hey, I've learned all the things from being able to communicate effectively and set really healthy, loving boundaries, but I still feel anxious. How do we clear anxiety? How do we fully step into this place where we feel safe, being seen and held and heard? And I've figured out what works for me and for a lot of people out there in the world and in my Kaleidoscope and the Feel Good membership communities. And we do it through a lot of creativity and a lot of play and a lot of exploration, and ultimately breaking down the barriers so that we're not trying to follow like rigid therapeutic rules anymore. We're just trying to play and actually discover what brings us joy while we decrease the overwhelm. So it's been a journey. I don't think anyone, always has a straight shot into kind of what they're doing in their life. I think most of us are multi-passionate and
absolutely
have a few twists and turns and pivots, but I'm really happy with where we're at now because it's just so much fun to help people discover how they want to heal in a way that's unique for them.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And I mean, I love that you're mentioning play, creativity, expression. It sounds a little bit like flirt energy to me.
It's frickin' flirty, I'll tell you that. Yeah, you got to, right? Because if you can't imagine, if you can't be in your imagination and in your playful energy, then how can you step into a life that you've never lived, for instance?
Yeah.
Right?
So I'm curious what some of the maybe parallels or differences were between working with children and they were going out and really expressing themselves through play, getting out in nature, and probably forming some relationships, some connections as well, and learning skills in that way versus a more traditional clinical setting, let's say talk therapy between you, the client, and a practitioner, maybe a therapist, where you're really, it's a stationary practice and you're talking about your problems or your struggles or your concerns, what's going on, even what's going well. So I'm curious, to hear a little bit more about some of the maybe therapeutic differences between those two approaches.
Yeah, I find even though the traditional therapy field is growing and changing a lot, and the majority of the therapists that I'm connected to who are still in that field are really excited for the field to expand and to be more holistic, that as it currently stands with a lot of things that are approved and regulated and like quote unquote ethical in the therapy world, it does restrict your ability to grow when you are expected to only use words. And that is because your verbal processing and your intellectualization of why maybe you're an insecure attachment style in a partnership or why you feel really activated and defensive in XYZ experiences, that it just lives up in your structured mind. It's all up in your head, right? And while we can gain some results from it, it's ignoring the entire rest of your experience, which is in your body. And the body likes to move, right? The body likes to play. Your emotions are activated in your body via sensation and feeling. And we can't think our way through our feelings. We have to actually learn how to feel them.
Feel them,
Feel them specifically with movement, right? And that movement can look like yoga. It could look like jogging. It can look like walking. It can look like singing. It can look like painting. It can be literally anything that moves you into deeper connection with yourself. And so in working with children in a more expansive setting, you could find those touch points.
Okay.
And you could bring a lot of metaphor into the experience, right? So you could build up the walls of a little creek and make a dam, and then
Yeah.
talk about how when we close ourselves off to the world, our emotions start to build and they rise to the surface until they're pouring over, right? Or
Okay.
it creates a lack of flow, and then you can pull the rocks off and they can see how, oh, the water washes down, right? So there's
Yeah.
so much more content to play with. And ultimately, you know what I noticed is that with the therapeutic interventions that quote unquote work, EMDR, EFT, maybe even some of the therapeutic drug trials and experiences that people do now, all that these are doing is they're bringing in a new experience to an experience that you've avoided your entire life.
Okay.
So that you're more focused on the new experience as you then process the thing that scares you. That's it.
Okay.
And we can do that with ourselves every single day, all the time, right? If you're feeling anxious, it's not necessarily going to help to then just focus on the anxiety and try to get rid of it.
Yeah.
But if you think, okay, well, what would make this anxiety feel really like inspired today or safe and supported? Maybe it needs to go do some gardening. Okay. Well, bring in that new experience of gardening into the experience of feeling anxiety and let those two things meet.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the exact same reason why all of these therapeutic interventions work, where it's just like you have to be willing to introduce something new into the thing that you've been avoiding, because it softens the experience.
Okay.
While also lighting your world up and like reminding you how much joy there is to have and how much beauty. But I definitely found adults were resistant to that in the therapy room. They're resistant to things like art practices, right? Therapy practices that include art and metaphor, but simply because that wasn't what we were taught. We were taught that we were supposed to heal with our words. And so we should be able to quote unquote figure it out. When we need to stop thinking about it altogether, to be honest.
Yeah, I get that completely. I think we're going to come back to in a moment, because the word that's coming to mind is embodiment. And that's a lot of what you talk about. I mean, one of my catchphrases is get out of your head and into your heart, right? Don't think your way through flirting and dating, but more so feel your way through it is going to be, I mean, you're going to use your logical, analytical mind from time to time, but
of course,
more so trusting yourself, your intuition, leading with your heart, making life a heart-centered practice. It just, it opens you up to such a much more expansive life experience that isn't just rooted in maybe old stories, patterns, beliefs, right? Structures, cycles, patterns, habits. You can now really embody all the feel-good emotions, but also the anxiety, the fear, the grief, the, fear of rejection even. So it's like,
how did you learn that to be heart-led?
I mean, it's got to be through my yoga training and yoga teaching. But I also wanted to share a little bit about my experience with the traditional therapeutic approach to, let's say, mental health, as someone that has had depression, anxiety my whole life. I mean, for decades and decades. And so badly, I just wanted to feel better. That was it. I just wanted to feel better. And so I did what I thought was right, and that was talk therapy plus medication. Right. And that was the route I took forever. And I recognized that for a lot of people, that combination works well and they make progress. And I want to congratulate them for that. And they should feel really proud. For me, that combination didn't work. And I stayed stuck, and I never made any significant progress. I picked up some new skills and habits. CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, was something that was useful for me. It was a skill, but it wasn't a solution. It wasn't really a remedy. It didn't move the needle enough. And so I was that patient that just kind of kept talking about the same things over and over. And I felt very guilty. I would shame myself. I felt embarrassed. Like, why can't I make this work? Why am I not getting better? Like, what's wrong with me kind of thing. Yeah.
Which is so challenging, because it comes from this place of like, I do believe in my life and I do have hope and I want to feel better. And I believe that that's possible. And yet I'm doing all the things I'm told to do by people that are meant to be experts in this field. And it's not quite clicking for me. Right. So of course that doubt comes in, and that feeling of being stuck comes in. How did you end up navigating that? How did you find a new way through?
It was really the experience of getting off psychiatric medication, which I was on for 20 years. And getting off was one of the hardest, most difficult experiences I've ever gone through in my life. It's honestly not something I've talked about very much at all. And I still don't know that I really have the language to explain that in a way that's both respectful and responsible, because I know millions of people all over the world, a lot of flirties listening right now are on medication. And I don't want to instill fear in them or make them, doubt their own experiences or something like that. So I want to support them, but at the same time, share my experience, which was really, really difficult. And I kind of had this moment of I don't want to die, right? I have this whole life to live, and I felt like I had all of this potential, all of these dreams just locked up inside of me that were waiting to be discovered. And so I went on a good old healing journey through.
You're like, give it to me, God. Let's go.
God. And I'm still in it. I would still say I'm very much in the infancy of it. I've made a lot of progress, but what I learned is I've got to get out of my head. I've got to get into my heart and just do more so what feels right and not what I think I should do, not what people told me I should do, what society said I should do. I mean, if you only knew how many times I've heard in this flirt journey, like, Benjamin, what aren't you going to get a real job? Benjamin, I don't know about this. Are you sure? Shouldn't,
right.
I don't know. I mean, but really, what are you thinking? And I'm like,
it just doesn't fit into their construct yet.
No, I'm like, sorry, I got a mission. I got something I need to do.
I am doing it. Absolutely. I can relate to that for sure.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really challenging in those moments to decide to go against the grain a little bit, even when you're doing things like, hey, I think my season with therapy is close. I think my season with this medication is coming to an end, and that there's something else out there, and I'm going to go through whatever I need to go through to find it.
Yeah.
Because the reality is our bodies are here to help us heal. They're not broken.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
If you're feeling big emotions, even emotional overwhelm, that means your body's working. It's a good thing. It does not mean you're broken at all. It just means that your body's inviting you to connect to it deeper and to learn a new way of creating safety.
Yeah.
Really from the inside out. And when you're not taught that, of course, your body's going to be activated all day long, every day, being like, hey, I've got some really amazing wisdom for you and journeys for you. And when you're ready to listen, we're going to get there, you know?
Yeah. That's, oh my gosh.
And there's not
so
just
true.
one way to do it. There isn't just one way to do it.
No, but that's the good thing. That's the really freeing thing too, is that there's so many ways to embody your feelings and emotions and to heal, to listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you make that shift after? I know you don't necessarily want to go too deep into your shift from medication to being internally resourced, but how did you take those first steps?
I feel like it a lot of it started with physical healing, with nutrition. And with lifestyle changes, with even how I was exercising, right? So I used to be the person in the gym that was like, I couldn't miss a day. It was so rigid. Cardio, right? Counting calories, all the things. And what I realized is I was already in such a state of stress and overdrive and overwhelm with my nervous system that I was not only keeping myself in that state, but making it worse. So I had to very much intentionally slow down, focus on rest. I was an awful insomniac, was not getting any sleep. And I had to look at what I was putting in my body too. I mean, what we consume, not just with food, air, and water, but with our media, what we watch, what we read, what we listen to. I had to be so intentional about that and not compare myself to anybody else of like, oh, well, they can do that. They can eat this. They can go do this and whatever, and they seem to be just fine. I had to come back to myself and just really get intentional with healing my physical body so that I could more so nourish my emotional and spiritual body too.
Yeah. Well, you're building the foundations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're building the foundations. And that is usually what depression is indicating as well, is that you're denying yourself your authentic self-expression through your body, through your emotions, through your boundaries, through your relationships, like on all levels.
Yeah.
You're avoiding your authentic identity.
Yeah.
And so it is, I mean, that's the beautiful place to start, is like, okay, I'm going to remove a chemical substance, which is going to have a big impact on the body. And now I'm going to build it back up from the ground up.
Yeah.
From floor 1 and up to 2 and up to 3. And it does take time.
Yeah.
But also I hear in that story, like, so much self-trust to be like,
oh my gosh.
this might be scary. It might be shaky. I'm building completely new rules for me and how I interact with my body and the world.
Yeah.
And yet it's going to keep getting better, right? Every new piece that you put into place that feels more aligned for you, like it does just get better and better and better as you continue leaning into that.
Yes.
And in such a sustainable way, right? Long term, where you just, now you're like, okay, I know how to get to know myself. I know, like, if I step out of my normal kind of feel good vibes and I'm having a rough day, I know how to get back. I know what makes me feel good. I know you're doing it in a way that works for you. I love that you went through that journey and just started with really simple things. What do I eat?
Oh, yes.
How do I move?
Yeah. You have to start with the simple things. Is because I tried the other thing of trying to find the quick fix, the like magic pill overnight solution, or just take on all of these lifestyle changes and habits right away, which maybe you have some energy motivation for a few days, a week, 2 weeks, but ultimately so much change so quickly just isn't sustainable. It really is about the small steps. And one of my friends, Rita, who's been on the podcast, she had this phrase, left foot, right foot, just keep marching. And that just became, that was my motto and still is, like, just get up in the morning, 1 foot down, 1 foot in front of the other, one moment at a time. Like, and you can do it, Flirty. It's not easy.
Do it.
I want to hear, coming back to embodiment, and because I think we've been talking a lot about feeling your emotions as then a way to to express yourself. So focusing a little bit more on embodiment first, how would you describe that?
I see embodiment as presence of mind through your physical form. So in the body, basically.
Okay.
Most of us are walking around pretty disconnected. We're either up in our structured mind, we're thinking things through, we're ruminating, we're trying to project into the future, and overthinking all the time. And that's fine. Society has literally been trained to do that over the last several hundred years, to be very dominant in the thinking mind. And at the same time, now we're bringing the full body back online. And one of the biggest shifts that I find is that, especially with the clients that I work with in the beginning and the community that I have, is that we switch from, okay, what do I think I need to do in this moment? And we move into a place where, like, what does my body need me to do? And so instead of thinking, we're actually listening now.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so an emotion is just a sensation paired with a conscious thought, making meaning out of that sensation. And so your thoughts and your emotions and your body, it's all connected. We're a holistic system, right? You can't really piece it apart. But we can make this shift from trying to just project and assume and expect and think our way through our life and try to figure it out from that place to a place where we actually understand that our body has its own inner guidance system, which is perfectly attuned to us, our soul, our purpose. And we can shift from thinking to listening to those sensations as wisdom. Does that make sense? So every emotion is a little droplet of wisdom that you can go into. And when you're in that embodied state, you're listening to that inner wisdom rather than anything that's up here or anything that's outside of you, to be honest.
Right. Okay, let's play through an example. I'm thinking of the flirty that is starting to date someone and, they're texting. Maybe they've had a first date, maybe they haven't, but they're just like looking at their phone, right? They're looking at their phone. Why aren't they texting me back? Doesn't mean anything is wrong, but you're staring at the phone and you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, they found someone else. They don't like me. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something? And then the experience you're feeling is anxiety. You're very much overthinking, and now you're you're anxious, maybe spiraling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So how could embodiment help us in that situation?
By changing the invitation and the focus, right? So
Okay.
I get that sensation. I used to be very anxiously attached. I was with you guys on that whole ride.
Yeah.
And I would change the meaning that we make out of that anxiety. So instead of searching for that external validation that someone likes you or that you're lovable or that you're worthy or that they, they do want to see you again, whatever it might be. Instead of searching outside of you, you're going to go into that anxiety as an indicator for specifically connection to yourself.
Okay.
Right. So this is not an indicator that you need to prove people want to connect with you because they do. You're an incredible person. Everybody is. You all have light to share, right? And amazing personalities and gifts to bring. But see that anxiety, go into it. This is how I would do it. Into the body.
Okay.
Into the sensation. What's it feel like, first and foremost? Where is it coming from? Is it in your core, in your gut? Is it zingy? Is it electricity? Is it tension? Is it hot? Is it cold? Does it make you feel like you need to run? Does it make you feel like you want to shut down? Just start noticing it and see if you can notice it without some of that judgment, right?
Yes.
Without some of the fear. It's literally just a sensation. It doesn't mean anything at all.
Yeah.
You could have the same sensation and decide you're really excited about something and feel really good about it, right? We have the same flipping of our stomach feeling when we're stoked about something.
Okay.
And take a few breaths, right? Breath is such a powerful tool. It's not a cure-all, but it's the first tool everyone should learn how to master because you're breathing anyway. So you might learn how to optimize breath through your body, but it's really good for calming down your nervous system and bringing you back into presence. So elongate your breaths and then just get curious. I think getting curious about what that anxiety is there to tell you is one of the most powerful practices as well, because that's where imagination comes up. And that's where we click into listening when you're like, anxiety, what do you need me to know?
Right.
Maybe it's that I'm giving my power away to other people and that I need to reclaim it. Okay, well, what would that look like today? In this very moment, instead of obsessing over my phone, what would it look like to reclaim my power in this moment? Maybe I need to clean my living room.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to go stock up my fridge with like really beautiful groceries.
Okay.
Right? Like whatever it looks like. And you can do that in any number of ways. Or like anxiety, what would safety look like right now?
Right.
Like really healthy, connected safety, not the like disconnection safety.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
So, and your body will speak to you. Your emotions are the language of your body, right? So they're going to get into conversation with you and they're going to guide you into something. It might take practice. You have to keep showing up for it.
Yes.
But you can get there. And from that place of calm, like what a beautiful place to start a new relationship from. Where you realize like you don't need anyone else to validate your worthiness or to feel loved. You just have to allow yourself to be the love and be the safety from within.
Yeah.
How have you navigated that? Or how do you help your flirties navigate it?
We're going to stay here for a moment. A few of the words I'm picking up on, that embodiment is a practice of presence, of curiosity, non-judgment, breathing. You're going to need some oxygen to get through this.
Breathe, girl.
To get through this.
Take a breath.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the flirty now. You also mentioned the word safety for the flirty that like actually doesn't feel safe in their body, like they just can't even sit still kind of thing. And so this is where I think, and we're going to come to this in a moment, where self-expression and play and just some movement can be really, really helpful and impactful, because that's ultimately what I had to do. So that's how I was able to navigate those experiences myself. That's how I feel like I'm able to help the flirties. And you also mentioned one of my favorite words, connection, where as much as I talk about the flirt being a practice of connection with others, whether you're flirting, dating, romantic, platonic, so much is also about the connection you have with yourself. How do you show up for a flirt, right? Do you like giving energy, receiving energy? Why are you nervous in that experience? What's happening in your mind, right? And so I think all of these, things we're talking about, these practices, the breathing, the play, the imagination, the non-judgment, ultimately help you to feel more connected to yourself And then that feeds into intuition, self-trust, self-love. It's all a process, a practice. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's coming to mind.
Just that.
Just
Just that.
that. But I feel like I want to say, bringing up yoga again, because I'm kind of obsessed with it. Like, I think it's important to find those practices and those teachers, whether they be actual people or maybe books or podcasts or lifestyles, where yoga for me, I really chose to adapt a yoga lifestyle, which is way more than some breathing and downward facing dogs. It's how I live my life. And I really needed some of that structure that wasn't maybe so quote unquote traditional. So whenever I am feeling lost or confused, which happens a lot still, I feel like I have a guide. I have somewhere to go to for answers. And of course, people, like your relationships with friends, family, therapists, practitioners, coaches. Yes, leverage your network.
Mentors.
Mentors.
Yeah, you don't have to do it all alone.
Oh,
now, of course, the caveat is you still have to filter it through your own inner guidance system and decide what fits for you.
Yes.
However, you don't have to do it alone. And sometimes when you feel the most stuck, it's because you literally cannot see the opportunities available to you that are outside of your scope of view. And it's so helpful to bring other people in to discover how Benjamin structures his day, right? Or how Eliah does her life. Like, see what other perspectives there are about living and existing and working through problems.
Yeah.
And then see what fits, because it's probably something you've never considered. That's why you feel stuck. You haven't learned that thing yet. You've never done it. You've never tried it. You've probably never even heard about it.
Yeah.
There was a time when I'd never heard of breathwork. You know, it didn't exist to me. And so we have to go out there and look and allow other people to provide some guidance sometimes, because it's too hard to do it on your own.
Oh my gosh, so hard. And so much of this is trial and error too.
Yeah.
Like, detach from like the outcome that something is going to quote unquote work or be the solution. Just try it. Just try it. And maybe try it again, right? If you feel like it didn't work, table it, park it, and come back to it. Yeah. Exactly.
And we can do that in our relationships as well, right?
Oh
Sometimes it feels like a relationship isn't working. And I say, break up. Let it go. If you guys are meant to be together, you'll get back together. You don't have to actually worry about it. If you are moving deeper into connection with yourself, you're always going to be stepping into greater and greater and greater alignment.
Yes.
And then the people that are meant for you from that place will come to you. They will show up in your life and be attracted to that point of connection that you have with yourself. But if you don't have it with yourself, if you don't know what it feels like to love yourself or trust yourself or to communicate with yourself, your intuition, your inner voice, then you're not going to be able to recognize when someone else is able to do that for you as well in a relationship. I think so many of us are just waiting for that perfect person to show up so we can have a successful relationship. It's like, they're not here yet because you're not doing it for you. You know?
That's so true. I want to, talk a little bit now about boundaries, because I love how you describe and just explain boundaries. Because when we're dating, it's going to be very important. And what I feel like I was hearing you say a little bit there is, in this process of healing and growing, right, coming into your full authentic self, realizing your potential, you're going to encounter a lot of people in that journey, not all of whom have your best intentions in mind. So if you are flirty, I mean, there's a few takers in the world. So the flirties that have struggled or maybe had difficulty with knowing someone's intentions, right, or setting boundaries for themselves, or how to maybe ask questions. How can they practice boundaries in this process?
Oh, such a good question. How many hours do you have?
We've got as many as you want.
All right, deep dive. Here we go. I think boundaries are one of the most misunderstood things out there in the world. And even with all of the millions of Instagram accounts talking about boundaries, most of the time when people think of the word boundary, and when people are even coaching on it, they're not actually talking about a boundary. They're talking about a defense mechanism, right? They're talking about, this is the line between you and me. No is a complete sentence. Get out of my space, right? These are not boundaries. These are defense mechanisms.
Okay.
They're based on safety and survival in the way that I see it. However, the way that I like to teach boundaries in ways that I see it effective is to think about them more as invitations for connection.
Okay.
Rather than something that keeps people away.
Okay.
Right. So when we are going into a new relationship with someone, for instance, it's a much more effective boundary to say, I'm really interested in having transparent communication. And that looks like checking in about stuff that we're uncertain about. It looks like sharing the emotions that are coming up in our body without projecting them on one another.
Okay.
Or I don't actually want to drink on a first date because I want to be present. And so would you like to go on a walk through the park with me and grab a coffee, right? You're telling people exactly what they need to do to connect with who you authentically are, what you need, what you desire, what you require for healthy relationships, what you require to be resourced and energized, right? So boundaries are invitations. They're the things that build bridges rather than the things that burn them down. But when it doesn't feel safe to be boundaried, and to take up space with your authentic self-expression, it often feels like in the mind, in the fear that you might be holding on to, that if I take up that space and I say, hey, this is what I want you to do, it's going to burn the bridge. People are going to get mad at you. And you know what? They might. Especially people that are used to getting what they need from you when you make yourself small. Or when you put their needs first, right? Or when you self-abandon. So the first thing is just thinking about that. It's like a total paradigm shift. Boundaries are invitations.
Absolutely.
Right? So what can you invite people into? And from day one, like if we're talking about the beginning of dating, day one, how can you insert your authentic need and desire into the beginning of this relationship? Start there. Right. Start there.
Okay, people pleasers, you hear that?
We're going to work on it.
I'm calling myself out. Yes, you can start.
We're going to work on it.
Right here, right now. I love that you explain boundaries as invitations for connection, and that also they are, because I see this framing all the time around boundaries, that they really are, they're presented as defense mechanisms. And you're also saying, like, as we're talking about self-trust and self-love a lot here too, authenticity, that they are, the boundaries come before the thing, right? So you're not on the date and now let's say you're drinking and maybe you're sober, you don't want to drink, that's just not what you want to do. And now you sort of have to get the mocktail, or like, oh, I'm going to sacrifice myself here and get the drink kind of thing. Or maybe I'm anxious, I don't actually say anything. So set that boundary beforehand and then alleviate that anxiety for your future self. Let yourself just have fun on the date.
Don't even go do something that you don't want to do alone. This is my dating philosophy. And it's great. I think this mostly got solidified during COVID when I was like, well, we can't do a lot of things, but I lived in LA at the time. I was like, I'm just going on hikes. And then I realized, why would I ever do anything on a date that I wouldn't enjoy doing by myself? Especially with online dating being a thing. It's not a date. It's a meetup and let's see if we have absolutely any chemistry at all. That's what it is. And so you might as well really look at like, what do I want to do this week? Well, maybe I can invite that person to do that thing with me. And so then if it's just like, oh, well, they were nice, but I felt nothing for them romantically. Well, you still got to do that thing that you wanted to do. And you had a pleasant conversation. Congratulations. That's like a win-win for everyone. That's a net positive always. But I was going to say that when it comes to boundary setting as well, sometimes it feels really scary to even make invitations to other people. So for anyone that is coming from this people-pleasy place, or a place where they have a lot of avoidant patterns or anxious patterns in their relationships, you're just going to start with setting personal boundaries. It comes back to that self-connection, building the self-love, building the self-connection, really claiming your emotions and your inner wisdom. A personal boundary is just a boundary set with yourself. It's in regard to the thoughts that you allow yourself to think, the way that you respond to your emotional experiences, the daily habits that you have. Like you described it beautifully when you said, I'm going to put some structure into living the yoga lifestyle.
Yeah.
because that feels really healthy for me. Great. Boundaries provide you that structure to be in alignment. And so there's so many steps that you can take to really turn towards yourself and be like, okay, you know what? I feel changes coming into my life. I think that I would feel way better, for instance, not eating sugar this week. Okay, that might be a little hard. There might be a growth edge, letting go of the coffee, letting go of the booze, anything like that might push you, but you're going to say, I want to live in alignment with this. And you show up for yourself and you start practicing it. And that's the personal boundary. And that's the muscle that you flex that lets it be so much easier to do once you're in front of somebody. Because how often do you hear those people that are like, I am on a roll. I'm feeling so good. I'm single. I don't even need to date anyone. I am like, my life is feeling great. My mental health is great. My depression is gone. I'm doing awesome. And then they get to the place where like, okay, maybe I'll consider dating. And then the moment they start dating, boom, back into the anxious attachment. They're like, I've completely lost myself. Where did I go? Right. So it is a different experience practicing with another person, with their emotions and their drama and all of that. So you got to give yourself both experiences, build yourself up, and then, start inviting people into it.
Yeah. That's that self-healing piece so important. And then I've definitely seen that experience too of like, oh, I'm ready to date again. And then you start dating and you're like, wait, hold up. I thought I was done with the anxiety. What?
Where'd it go?
But you're going to bring now into this experience your self-trust, boundaries, communication skills, emotional freedom, self-expression. And so I imagine you're going to meet that anxiety and those experiences that may be uncomfortable differently. So
a little bit differently. It's going to get better and better every single time. Yeah. I see so many people, friends and clients, like go through that experience and kind of beat themselves up about it, right? Where they're like, I thought I was over this. I thought I was never going to do this again. But look at the raw data. Maybe you were in a relationship that felt really unhealthy in that anxious avoidant attachment for like 3 years the last time. And this one, you called it off after only 8 months. Congratulations. Like that's actually a really big shift. And huge. The next time it might only take 4 weeks, and until you just show up and you see the moment you meet someone, oh, this person isn't available for love and connection.
Right.
And I know that because I'm loving towards myself and very connected.
Exactly. All right. I've got just a couple more questions for you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about self-expression. In this process. I think we've been talking a little bit about it in this practice of embodiment, how we can express our thoughts, feelings, our emotions. Like we hear, right, go take a walk or maybe even like listen to music, dance, something like that. But I want to hear, from your perspective, how we can express our emotions.
Express our emotions specifically?
Well,
all right.
The self-expression within the experience of embodiment.
Yes. How can't you express your emotions?
Oh.
That's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
So moving out of any sort of like rigid or traditional idea that there's one way to do that, what I would be doing is I would be asking the question to yourself as an individual, because you're going to know what you need. If we're even just talking about Benjamin, right? Or Suzanne or Bobby, whoever's listening to this call, Philip, tune in. What do you need in this moment to feel connected, to feel joyful, to feel safe? And that's going to change from day to day to day, moment to moment to moment. So what you needed 5 minutes ago might be different than what you need now. What you need when you're feeling anxiety come up for you might be different than what you feel when you need anger. But there are ways, the only rules I really put on it is that it needs to be safe to yourself and to other people. Obviously, when you're expressing your emotions. And to move into connection, because most of us learned when we express our emotions to disconnect from them because we didn't know that it was safe to feel them. And so we either disconnect by shutting down or we disconnect by projecting them onto other people, right? Like throwing anger or blame at other people or shutting down as a victim. So we don't want to do the disconnection cycle anymore. We want to move into connection to them slowly, softly, with no pressure, and honestly, no agenda. Right? You cannot feel anxious and say, I think breath work is supposed to make me feel calm. I'm going to do breath work so that my anxiety goes away, and have the anxiety go away. Because at that point, you're thinking your way through it instead of actually feeling.
Yeah.
Right? So through the creative coping process and philosophy that I teach, the idea is whatever sensation you're feeling in your body, the best way for it to be expressed is to really ask it what it desires to do. Use your five senses for it, right? See, touch, taste, smell, hear. You might bake some cookies and like smell the smell of them and bring the anxiety into it and feel how good it feels to smell it.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You might use some finger paints.
Okay.
You might go gardening. You might walk. You can express yourself in all of these different ways. And at the same time, build that connection.
Yeah.
Right? Sing, dance. And that can feel really overwhelming to people sometimes to be like, what? I have to decide? Yeah, you have to decide what's right for you. But really get into connection and let it move. That energy just needs to move through your system. It might need to move slow. It might need to move fast. But we're connecting to it rather than avoiding it. And through that, discovering, honestly, what brings you joy. Because just talking about our feelings is boring. We're not going to learn that much about ourselves doing that.
No.
But take your sadness or your grief on a freaking bike ride, and suddenly you're like surrounded by the world, and you're moving your body, and you're starting to feel so much better. But you have to trust yourself. So just literally do anything. Anything that goes towards connection.
Yeah, that practice of self-connection that you flirties, you get to actually feel good. You get to enjoy life. You get to be happy and experience the full range of emotions. You're not going to be on cloud nine every single day. But over time, like I would say, you could spend a lot of time just enjoying and loving this experience. And I think one thing I picked up on is this, that you were talking about, is this attachment we often have to the agenda, to the outcome, where I'm feeling anxious. And so I'm going to do some breath work. I'm going to close my eyes. Oh, but now it didn't work. I would say you probably already maybe set yourself up for it not to work, because if you didn't have this exact outcome, then it was going to be a failure.
Right.
And so more so embodying, expressing yourself.
Accepting.
Yes, acceptance. Oh my God, the acceptance piece is so big. And I'll just quickly share, one of the things that I used to do was cook. I'm glad you mentioned that example, because it was very sensory. I could move. I could use touch, smell, of course, sight, taste at the end. And I just always felt like I was paying it forward to my future self in that moment, that I was doing something for me rather than going for, right, like the soda and Cheetos and Doritos, really anything cheese flavored for me. Let me cook. And also that got me out of my head, because I was doing something tangible, like I was actually performing something.
Yeah, you were creating art with your body, and you had to be present with it.
Yes.
And that is also, I think, probably the other most underrated piece of healing and really coming home to yourself and feeling self-expressed is practicing joy.
Yes. Oh my God.
Whatever you focus on grows, right? So that's, again, the other issue with all of these TikTok threads going, I'm depressed. And then there's thousands of comments of other people going, me too.
Yeah.
Sure, it feels good to know that you're not alone.
Yes.
But if we're just focusing on the anxiety or on the depression or on the anger, we're just going to have more of that in our lives, right? So we have to practice finding joy and creating something new for ourselves. And like, how beautiful is cooking as an experiment to that?
Where intention goes, energy flows. That's what we say.
Right.
And yoga. Oh my gosh, Eliah, before I send all the flirties your way, one more quick question here. I wanted to end on this theme of joy. So for the flirties that are in their healing journey, and this was true for me, where you start to have those good moments and those experiences, but your default way of being for so long, you want to resist those. Or this isn't for me. I shouldn't feel this. It almost feels wrong. So some parting words of wisdom for the flirties that are maybe having that experience.
When you don't trust how good it can get.
Ooh.
Right? Yeah. Or you step into a new relationship and you're like, this person's being really nice and emotionally stable to me. Like,
Yeah.
what
wrong?
shoe is going to drop?
Yeah.
What's wrong? Maybe they are really nice. Maybe they're faking it and they're just trying to hold it together, but maybe they are inviting you into a different way of being. I look at it just like a muscle that you have to work, right?
Yeah.
You are building your container for joy, and you are working on flexing that muscle where you trust that life can be really good.
Yes.
That it can feel good. Even if you're feeling grief, for instance, you know that grief is going to bring you deeper into connection. So it becomes a rewarding experience.
Yeah.
Right? It can feel good to support yourself through those moments, to move with the physical energy, to move with the emotional energy. And so joy and trust and beauty and inner peace all just start to build and become more of your norm. And again, you still feel the full spectrum of emotions, but because you know that's normal, and because you now know it's rewarding and it brings you all of these beautiful insights and wisdom, then it's suddenly safe. But it does take time because you're literally rewiring your brain.
Yeah.
So of course, your brain, which is built on all the past experiences you've had, is going to be like, let's just go back to the old way of doing things. Like that feels easier. Yeah. Your brain just wants to operate, keep you safe based on what's predictable. Exactly. And you're actively stepping into this state when you're doing this work of carving out a new part of your body, a new connection to your heart, to your power, to your safety and security. And so you have to just keep flexing the muscle, keep building it up, keep practicing the joy, keep setting those beautiful boundaries and making the invitations. And over time, your brain will get enough evidence that that's possible, that it'll solidify. And then that just becomes your baseline. You're like, of course I'm dating someone that's attractive and they communicate and they grow with me and we have a great time and it's playful. Like, that's not asking too much. I'm that way. So of course it exists.
And you deserve it, Flirty. You deserve it.
Deserve it.
Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's right or even easy. Create a new familiar for yourself. You get to be in all these feel-good emotions and experiences too. Oh my gosh, Eliah Prichard, this has been incredible having you on the show today. The Self-Expression Lab podcast, the Feel Good membership, your socials. I'm going to have them all linked in the show notes below. But where can the Flirties find you and work with you?
Come on by, my friends. Yeah. So everything is at Kaleidos-Cope on Instagram, on TikTok, www.kaleidos-cope as well. The best place to jump in, and honestly, the most amount of value that you can get is in the Feel Good membership. There's 2 different tiers of that. So it's really accessible, and there's loads of connection and community and self-paced courses and workshops and kind of invitations into this work in that space. But honestly, you can also just send me a DM on Instagram. And we can have a little chat and figure out what supports you. But thank you so much for being here with me today and inviting me on to your community. I love your energy and all of the work that you're doing. It's been a really big joy for me. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing this time and space with me today. I'm going to send all the Flirties your way. Eliah, thank you for being on the show.
Of course. I'll see you next time.
Yes. All right, Flirties, that's a wrap on this episode of Flirtations. Thank you so much to our guest for this episode today, Eliah Prichard, for coming on the show and sharing so much with us about embodied healing, self-love, self-trust, boundaries, the nervous system. I love this conversation and hope you got, at least one new fun takeaway, a puzzle piece shifted into place. I love when we can have these conversations about healing and nervous system regulation and just building that stronger connection with ourselves, getting to know ourselves better, trusting ourselves more, really believing that inner voice, our own intuition. This was so much fun. Thank you, Eliah. Definitely check out her socials, her programs, courses, website, all so amazing. Many resources there for you. All right, Flirty, thank you to you for listening, for tuning in, for streaming wherever you may be in the world. None of this would be possible without you. Thank you, so much for being here. Please rate, review, subscribe to the show if you haven't already. If you have, thank you so much. If you haven't, now's a good time to drop, maybe 5 stars or so, just as a random number that's coming to my mind. And then share this episode or another episode of Flirtations that you enjoyed with a friend, someone you want to share some BFE, Big Flirt energy with. Okay, Flirty, that's going to do it for me, Benjamin, the Flirt Coach and Gay Libra here at Flirt Headquarters. Yes, signing off officially and wishing you very happy flirting.